Hello, I'm Dr. Lauer. Welcome to Introduction to Python. We're going to be using an interactive textbook that you can resource through Canvas. So first I'd like to do a little bookkeeping here. If you're using Google Chrome, and I recommend it because it's a pretty good browser for most of what we're doing, it's recommended for Canvas too, I'd recommend you go over here to the side and go to the Customize Bookmarks and show your bookmarks bar. You can see I have a bunch of bookmarks sitting here, but if I wanted to create one, I could drag it down, and in here I can hit the right click, and do an edit or a delete. In this case, I don't want a second CS121 course because I always have one sitting over here. But you can edit it here. I usually make it a little bit shorter so that I don't have really long ones coming across the page like this. So I don't want to edit that. I actually want to delete it. So I'll just delete it. And it deletes the bookmark. On the home page for CS121, the programming course, you notice the quick links here. There's a course syllabus. You should read through that carefully. It kind of shows you what to expect for the course. All your course assignments are on the module right now, and we'll be going to that page in just a moment. Your first assignment is actually to introduce yourself. So when you go in here, you'll be able to upload a video, record a video, and right now there is a video of me that you can see. And then you record your own video, and David already has one on here. Hooray! If I go to the modules, you can see I have all the Test 1 assignments here. So basically this is what's happening between now and September 11th, which is when our first test is. The chapters are going to be done about one a week, and they'll be due at midnight on Friday. You really should try to have them done before you come to class on Friday morning. Midnight on Friday is kind of giving you a lot of leeway. It's like an extra 24 hours that you really shouldn't need. You should be working 6 to 8 hours a week in this class. It's a 3-hour class. That's pretty typical to have to do 6 to 8 hours worth a week. Ours is pretty consistent. It's not like you have a big paper that you're going to have to write at any particular point. You have consistent work going throughout. When you do come to having to do the projects, and there will be a project due after Test 1, I believe, then you'll be spending a little bit more time in those projects. But if you've been studying programming, then the projects should be fairly straightforward for you. If you go to grades, you can see where the grades are going to appear for you. It's fairly easy to look at how well you're doing in the course at any particular moment. Let's go back to modules, and we're going to touch that first chapter. And here you can see there's a link that is for zyBooks. Mine's not going to work because I'm in the student view. But you'll have one there. If you have any trouble at all, email me, and it shouldn't be a problem signing up at all. Let's go back to the modules. In here in the Test 1 resources, I'll have links to all the videos that I'll be uploading. This one, Chapter 1 video, is the one I'm working on right now, so you're not going to see that until I have that ready. But that's where you'll be able to find it. I'm going to update these pretty regularly for you, and I'll put Test 1 reviews in here also. Let's go back to the modules, and I'm on Chapter 1. I'm touching that module link there, but I can't touch it with my student view. But I can go back over here and show you what it actually should be showing you. So first, there should be a video for you to watch, so go ahead and watch the video there. We're going to go through the activities here, and you can see it's just a textbook, really. You're going to read through everything that's in here, hopefully gleaning the information that you need from it. You're going to have participation activities, and I'll go through a few of these so that you can get an idea of what the book's going to look like. The first chapter is really very, very, very basic, so it should be fairly straightforward to you, except that it is a new thing that we're doing, both with the zyBook interactive textbook and also with Python programming. So I usually set these basic programming things, so that they're on double time, because I like to see them come double time, but you may not like that. But I'm going to show you what that looks like. If I start the activity, it's going to say, get the next input, there's the 2. Get the next input will be the second step, so it's going to go step by step, and it gives me the 5. and then another step, it gives me the x plus y, which is 7. So z equals x plus y, and that's actually a line of code there. And then we're going to put z to the output. So this is kind of telling you how the program will work. This isn't actual code, this is pseudocode. But you can see how it works in the SciBook. So it gave me a check mark because I finished with that, and that's all you're really doing. You're going to work straight through the textbook and wait for it to get your check mark. If you haven't done something or you need to repeat something, you can repeat it. I can go back and repeat this if I wanted to. It's not going to change my grade because I already have a grade for it. I've gotten the activity scores for it. It's a little bit slower, and that's fine too. Then there's examples like this. The program has how many instructions? So it says get the next input, get the next input, then we're going to do that, and it looks like it has 4 instructions to me. Let's see if 4 is the right answer. 4 instructions, we'll check, and it says that that was correct. It's just that straightforward. I think on mine I can show the answers, but I don't know if you can. You might be able to show the answers. You might be able to. So if you can show the answers, I mean, that's fine. But working through the thing with the answers there is not going to be very helpful to you when it comes down to having to write programs by yourself without any resources available. So suppose a new instruction were inserted as follows: z equals x plus y, add 1 more to z, put z to the output. What would the last instruction then output to the screen? Well, in this particular program, we had z was 7, but we're going to put z says add 1 more to z, so that means that I should have 8. And I'll check to see if that's right. It was right. It makes me feel so good. All right, so I don't need to go through each of those. I'll just show you kind of what it looks like. So here they're showing you, there's a recipe here. This is the first programming activity, and it's execute the program and observe the output. So we're just doing run the program. Put in 5. 5 times 2 gives me 10. And then we're putting the output to the screen. This again is pseudocode. Notice again the check came up. Then there are questions about that output. This is the first Turtle program we have, and Turtle graphics is what's used to actually draw things on the screen. So if we run what they have here, pin down, forward 100, left 120, forward 100, left 120, forward 100. If we run this, it's going to start in the middle of the screen because we didn't give it coordinates to start in, and that's the default for the Turtle program. Now they're just having you play with this for a little bit, so you can get rid of the pin down and run it. And you notice that the cursor is going there, but there's no pin running, so it's not actually going to show you where the pin is. I can put that pin down back in and move it around. I can get rid of a forward 100, and we'll see what it does here. So it goes to left 120, and we get a little caret. And you can play with this a little while longer if you want to, but we're at the end of the first part of chapter 1. 1.1 is over. So we're ready to go on to, I guess I can look at the completion details. This says I'm complete. I got credit for, well, actually I'm not complete. So there are things I didn't finish, but you can look here and see that you have finished it. Okay, looking at programming with Python, the 1.2, it keeps giving me errors because it's not going to give me credit for stuff. But basically, you see again, we have a Python interpreter, and now we have actual code in here. So if you were using the IDE, Integrated Development Environment, which we're not going to use for about 3 weeks, we're just going to play in this interactive textbook for about 3 weeks, and then we'll make things a little bit more complicated. So this is actual code for what we've been doing in the last one. So wage equals 20, hours is equal to 40. Notice that this is a variable, and the variable on this side is being set to 20. And it always has to be variable equals all the way down. That's backwards from thinking in mathematics. Well, not necessarily backwards, but in mathematics you get away with saying 20 is equal to wage. In programming you cannot. You have to say wage is equal to 20. So if I run this, it'll run just like the last ones have, and you can see what's going on with the program. I won't run this one in the interest of time. Now it says match the Python terms, so basically it's seeing how well you know the vocabulary now. A row of text should be a line, you think? And you see that's correct. So all you're having to do is move those down. Executing a program, they're showing you another one here, same kind of thing. Make sure you read through and go carefully through what they ask you to do in these little exercises. There are more questions for this. We're going to look at our first Python 500 race here. And I can see that there's programming in here. And the little slider will help me go through the program. This is far more complicated than you're able to do at this point because we're just getting started with Python. Unless you've had a little bit of Python, this is a lot more complicated. But you can see that I have variables up at the top here set to particular speeds. So car1 is, the top speed is 60 and its acceleration is 11. Car1 should win, right? When I run this, it says car1 wins. So what would I have to set these to make car2 win? So if I made it so the car1 acceleration was maybe 1 instead, and run it again, then car2 wins by 774 meters. So you can play with that for a little while. But basically, this is the first program to kind of show you that things can get pretty complicated, but we're not anywhere near this level of complication. This is our first lab. Warm up, hello world. So the labs are kind of interspersed because I've moved them around to be interspersed in the textbook instead of waiting till the end. So the lab should match with what you've been doing. So we were just looking at print statements, and all this is asking me to do is print stuff. So it's saying, write a program that outputs the following. So here, type your code here, and right below here, I'll type print. And if I want exactly the following there, I can highlight. This is string format. This is a string that I'm putting in. So I can highlight, copy, and paste it in. You can use either a single quote or a double quote for a print statement. And I can work in develop mode so that when I run it, it says that it's displayed here and it runs just fine. I can work in submit mode. And it says that this one works just fine, but I haven't done the other two. So I can see I've got 1 point for this one here, and I still need to do the other two. The develop mode lets me play with it and run the program and see what's happening. It displays what I wanted it to display. So it discusses a little bit about that in here. Update to the output below for 2 more points. So it wants me to put in the statement, how are you? Control C. So instead of putting put, the Python code for printing, for putting something on a screen, is to put it either in single or double quotes, and I'll Control V, double quotes. Because I started with a double quote, I have to end with a double quote. And now I can do my develop mode, run my program, and see that it actually does display what I want it to display. I can do the submit mode here and do submit for grading and see if that one worked. And now I have credit for that one. The next part is to get the next line in. So I'm going to copy that line, Control C, do the same thing I did before, print, single quote, put that in. But if I run, I need my single quote to close it out. If I run this now, you can see this is different colors in here. If I do this in develop mode and run the program, it's going to give me an error. And it's kind of showing me that it doesn't like the M here, invalid syntax. So after the M, it was expecting a parentheses because it was thinking that was the end of the quote. This part was quote to quote. So I have to do an escape character. That's what they're talking about here. The backslash with this character. And that should fix the error. So now this looks like I'm printing this whole string in here. I'll run the program again, see if it works. And it looks just fine. I'll do submit mode and run it again for grading. And I see that I've done all three of those beautifully. Now, I want to play with this for just a second, because I've put in double quotes. If I can type. Do I need that backslash? And by the way, the backslash is above the enter key on your keyboard. The / is beside the shift key. So, quotes, single quotes. And if I do submit for grading, it says that's fine. See? That's fine because I used double quotes and then I used a single quote in here. I'd recommend highly that you keep putting a backslash for this is called an escape character, an escape sequence, so that you're careful about not making the mistake. So I'm in submit mode, I'm going to submit for grading, and you see it's going to let me do this one too. Okay. The next one is a lab with ASCII art. So it says that it wants to output this tree and submit for 2 points. And it's got some of it here already. So I could go ahead and copy the other 2 lines of the tree. 3 lines, if I count, just like this. And below type your code here. I could type it where it is, but I'm going to put it below it. I'm just going to put in print sequences. And I guess I'm going to use that over and over again, so I'll copy that. It could be that it's better for you to actually retype everything, because if you're retyping, you're learning better. But it's fine to copy and paste. And I'll run that. See if that runs. Okay, so there's my display. It says it looks just fine. And then if I want below the tree with 2 blank lines, so blank, blank, I'm going to put my cat in. So I copy and paste. I can do the same thing I did with this print statement here. I'm being really careful not to get rid of any of the white spaces. If you've been reading through before you're doing the exercises, they've talked about white spaces some. And then I can just put in the last. I can copy and paste that too. Now I want to go back. It said below with 2 blank lines. It looks like I only have 1 blank line, so I'll make sure that I have a blank line. Output this cat. Now it might mean that they want the print out to be 2 blank lines, which means I really need to put print. And I'll copy that. Because the blank lines in my code do not make blank lines in the print. Now I ran this and I've got an error. So that means that I probably should have looked a little more carefully. And here it says the backslash acts as an escape character. So whenever I have a backslash that I actually want to print, I have to backslash, escape it, and now it should work just fine. Now when you're reading through, and I did not read through on purpose so that you could see how this was working, but as you're reading through, there are hints here that will help you to avoid problems when you actually run through it. All right. Still in development mode, let's run the program again. And now I have the output that I expected. The submit mode, submit for grading, should give me all the points I made. 5 out of 5. Hooray! The crowd roars. So I'm done with this lab. And I'm ready to get into the next part of the basic input and output. Now we've just done a lab on that. But now they're showing you a little bit more. So select the statement that prints the welcome. and you're going to run a lab through there, and they want you to print the asterisk like this. You can copy and paste. Notice you really could just make one of these lines and then make two of these lines rather, and then copy and paste to get them all in there. So I'm going to skip down to keeping output on the same line. We're going to go a little bit more carefully through some of the scripts on here. If you want to just print Carl so that it shows up on one line, we could print it. None of this would have shown up if I just put that last statement in. But if I want to keep everything on the same line, put some spaces in between, here it's saying print there, hello there, period. Notice there's no space in here. The end is going to put a space in. So it says at the end of this statement, I'm going to put a space in, and then I'm going to print this. So instead, the default for Python is if you don't put anything in here, a print statement will take you to the next line. So this is how you get everything to print on one line. You can put one line after another of print, put an end in here with either quotes with a space in between them or just quotes, two quotes, one after the other, and you'll have that. Now, when you're looking at things like this, you want to make sure that you do a Control+ so that you can actually see the quotation marks, because there's quotation marks missing in places and it's really kind of difficult to see that. So Control- will take it back down, or Command if you're working with a Mac. So the value of variable can be print the variable name. So now if we make a variable, and that's like wage is 20 right here, I can print wages, make it so that it stays on the same line, and then I can print, if I put the variable in here, no quotes, because it's not a string, it's a variable, then it'll print out wages 20. Now this variable here is not an integer. This is a string also. To make it a string, I have to, an integer, I have to do a little bit more to make it a number. So everything in Python, unless you tell it it's a number, it's going to be a string. So then it asks you some questions about this. If you want to output multiple items with one statement, you can do it this way. I have a comma in between these two. If you put a comma in and put a variable in here or another string in here, it will automatically separate it with a space. So you'll automatically get a space in here. The common error is to forget the comma between. So make sure you're not forgetting the comma when you're putting a list of things that you want to have printed out on one line like this. It did put an automatic space thing. The new line character that I've talked about a little bit, the new line takes it from one line to the other, just like that. So \n, it's an escape character that will, when you put it in a string, and notice there aren't any spaces in here, you put in a string, it just takes it from one line to the other. So 1 is printed on the first, 2 on the second, 3 on the third. If you want to print without text, notice here the print statement. I didn't put any quotes in here. They didn't put any quotes in. I did when I did it earlier, and that was okay too. But if I want just a new line, print with nothing in it will give me a new line. I could have just the same up here, put in a \n and a \n here on that first line. So it's going to ask you to change some things in this string so that you can put variables in. So that's about putting in the characters and putting in the variables. Notice this variable here, country population, and this variable here, country name. So you haven't seen anything like this before. So it's kind of a new thing, but I want to change this string so that it actually prints out this. So I want to print out this output right here, but I don't want this to be printed. I want to use the country population here. Notice I did not put a space in here because this doesn't have but one space in between these. If I put a space in here, I'll end up with 2, and I'll get this wrong. So I need another comma. And we want this to be in quotes. The spaces in between here shouldn't make a difference. Spaces in the quotes do make a difference in how things are going to print. Then I need another comma, and instead of the 20, instead of the 2011, I want to put the country name. Oh, wait a minute. Country name goes over here. So I almost forgot one. Country name goes here. And I guess in 2011, should have been there. Okay, I'll go back and fix that in a second. But the population of quotes, I need a comma, country name, comma, then I need quotes was. Now every time I have quotes, that means I've got a string in there and it's going to add spaces beside the quotes. I still need to go over here and put in 2011. Now I'm mixing up the single and double quotes. We'll see if it works. It won't work if I mix it there at the end. And then I need to finish out my parentheses is there. So now it's saying that I got it right. So that's how that kind of exercise will work for you. So I had a country population. That was this variable. I had a country name. That was this variable. The country name was this variable, China. And I put it one space after the other, putting in spaces where I needed to. Notice that I put double quotes here, and later on I put single quotes. As long as they match within the same string, in 2011 is actually a string here. These are strings also. This number is actually a string. It's not an integer. It wouldn't be able to be used as an integer. And we'll go into that a little bit more further on in the lesson. Now the next thing we talk about is basic input, and I'm going to save this for the next video. So you should be able to get through these first 5 sections in Chapter 1 pretty easily.